Good evening, everyone. Welcome into another The Confident Autistic live stream. I am the Confident Autistic Chris, and I'm here to help you live confidently autistic, regardless of your age. I'm a little winded. I had a little wiring issue. That's why we were a little bit late. I had a wire touching another wire, and it caused a buzzing sound in my headphones, and it's driving me up for a wall. But everything's fine now. Welcome. It's June. Happy Pride Month. There are many people in the autism community that's part of the LGBTQIA plus community. Want to give a shout out to them and say Happy Pride Month. And we're with you, okay? Uh, be proud of who you are, whether it's you're a member of the LGBTQ community or you're just autistic. It doesn't matter. Be proud of who you are because you're an amazing, awesome person. Tonight's topic is going to be the 10 common fears that autistic adults face. There's some fears that we have as autistics that are common, and I wanted to share those with you tonight. And so if you're having any of those fears, you don't feel alone. You don't feel like you're an alien from another planet because they're common within our community. Now, before we get into that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my channel and me and catch my breath. So give me a moment here and we'll get into it. I am Chris Mitchell, like I said earlier, and I am the Confident Autistic. I'm a late diagnosed autistic adult. And on this channel, The Confident Autistic, I share videos that will help you understand what autism is as a late diagnosed autistic adult and help you discover, develop, and grow your own confidence to live confidently autistic. And that means where you're not ashamed or embarrassed or uncomfortable about who you are. You will go through life unmasked and uh, and be your authentic self. So uh, that is the mission of the channel. And if you're just tuning in, welcome. Feel free to put into the chat where you're from, and I'll give a shout out to you. Forgot to mention that earlier, but now I mentioned it, so I'm catching up on my mentions. And here's the other thing I want to mention. If this channel resonates with you, we have over 250 videos, and I'm working on a plan to put 3 to 4 videos up a week. Been a little crazy around here, but I'm working on that. But if this channel resonates with you, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Okay. We want to help this channel grow. We want this to get really, really big. Okay. And, and, uh, and be a service to a lot of people in the late diagnosed autistic community. It's been about a year since I went through and received my confirmation of my suspicions that I'm on the spectrum. And and it's been a very interesting year. A lot of self-discovery, a lot of reflection. So, this is what the channel is about, to help others go through what I went through so we can all grow together and grow stronger. So before we get into tonight's topic, I want to mention a couple of things. Before we get into tonight's topic, how's your summer going? How's the start of your summer going? I'll share mine a little bit. You can share how your summer is going in the comments, and I will acknowledge you and give you a shout out on the video. Now, I do have a free resource. I did mention the channel is about helping you understand autism and start your own journey to discovering, developing, and growing your own self-confidence. And I do have a free resource. It's a 28-page PDF that will help. It's an introductory. It's not everything underneath the sun, but it does give you an introductory breakdown of what adult autism is and gives you some starting points for you to begin living confidently autistic. And if you like that free resource, if that is something you are interested in getting, I'm going to put a link into the chat, and I believe there's one in the video description. If not, by the time this archives, I will have it in there. So let me get the link here, and we'll get that in there. There we go. And this is your starting point. It's a free PDF, free resource that you can get from me. And it will help you start your journey of accepting and understanding being autistic and not realizing it for most of your life, and help you start your journey on being living confidently autistic. You also, by getting this resource, all I ask is for your first name and your email address, because I got to know where to send it to, right? Makes sense. Anyway, so when you do get this resource, you'll also be subscribed to my newsletter, the Confident Autistic Blast. It's a weekly email that's going to be returning. It's been a little hiatus because things have been crazy in my life, and that will keep you up to date on what's going on. And there'll be some exclusive content that only people in the newsletter will get in their inbox. So you want to sign up for that. So just go to the confidentautistic.com/start. And that will be the page you go to get your free resource. Now, let me tell you how my summer's going so far. Been wet, having a lot of rain, and been very busy taking care of my responsibilities. And I have many, many, many of them. Okay, so it's an interesting thing that's going on with me. It's keeping me on my toes, but I'm committed to helping this channel grow. So be watching for more videos on here. In fact, I plan to put up a video tomorrow, and I'm going to tell you about the video in a moment. But tonight's topic is the 10 common fears of autistic adults face. And the other day I put a video up, and let me see if I can find that video. Um, let's go here. I'm on another screen. I'm pulling something up. Yeah, okay. I did a video the other day of why autistics um, fear things, right? Why fear, yeah, fear needles. That's it. Yeah. Why do we have such a horrid fear of needles that's almost debilitating? I'm going to put a link to that video right now into the chat. And it's a really good video. It really breaks it down. It's about 22 minutes, a little bit long, but that's okay. It has a lot of great information in it that will help you understand your fears of needles if you have a fear, and what you could try to help you with, managing or overcoming that fear. Now, for me, I have a horrible fear of needles, okay? Uh, in fact, when a needle is brought up in a conversation that I'm going to have a medical procedure with a needle, I start having anxiety. And when the actual time comes for the needle, whether it be a shot, an IV, or a blood draw, I can get as frightened and behave like a 3-year-old child that's frightened for his life. So tomorrow's video, I'm going to share with you, uh, some of the trauma, some of the experiences I've had, and my recent encounter with a blood draw with my primary care physician, and what helped me through that, and how wonderful it is. Spoiler alert here, how wonderful it is that I found a physician that understands my autism and is very supportive and non-judgmental. And that is amazing. I have an amazing physician that does it. And I'm going to share that story on a video tomorrow. So look for that tomorrow. It should be live about 3 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. And I will have a link to it in this video's description once that video is published up here on YouTube. So if you're just joining in, welcome in. I am the Confident Autistic. This is our weekly live stream. And this live stream is going to be 10 common fears that we autistic adults face. So let's get into those 10 fears. And let me get my notes up here. And this is an overview. And what I plan to do is get your feedback on the conversation, what fears resonate with you and all. And I plan to do a video, individual videos on these topics and go into a deeper dive. So let's get into this. Let me see if I could do this. Yeah, let's do this so I can see what's going on over here. Okay, the first fear, number one fear, and these are not ranked in any order. I'm not doing a David Letterman top 10 list. I'm not going to do my impersonation of Casey Kasem, but I'm going to dive into the 10 fears that we autistics, common fears that we have. And the first, the fear of rejection or abandonment. If you can relate to this fear and you feel comfortable, feel free to share that in the chat. We do everything we can here to keep this a safe and friendly environment. I know this is an open forum, but if you feel comfortable, please share. And later on, maybe later this year, probably maybe even first part of next year, we're going to make a safe space for all of us. But we need to go to the channel first. But we'll get back to that in a moment. But the fear of rejection and abandonment is a common fear for those of us who are late diagnosed autistic adults. And this includes the fear of being excluded or abandoned in relationships. And this includes relationships with friends, family, and romantic relationships. I know that's something I struggled with all my life and didn't understand why until I got my diagnosis. Additionally, in the fear of rejection and abandonment, we should talk about anxiety about being too much or too different to be loved or accepted. I know the things I've done in my life, in friendships that I thought, oh, okay, it's too much. And I lost friendships. And because of that, I developed a fear. Can I really be my authentic self? And that frightened me a lot. Okay, I want to be my authentic self, but I also wanted to mask and try to be what people expect of me, which can lead to fawning, which is people pleasing, which can it's dangerous, in my opinion. One, because you're not being true to yourself, and two, by people pleasing, if you get around the wrong crowd and you're fawning and you're trying to be a people pleaser, you can wind up in situations you don't want to be a part of. Okay, it's not a good thing. But that is fueled by our fear of rejection or abandonment. We don't want to lose friends. Making friends are hard for many of us on the spectrum. And then keeping that friendship, it seems really harder. And it is for us. And this is why we have that fear of rejection or abandonment. And one of the things that our fear of rejection or abandonment causes us to do is to be hesitant to disclose our diagnosis due to fear of judgment or distancing. It is, for some of us, it is very hard for us to share with people that we're on the spectrum. Okay. It is very difficult to do that. We're afraid that we're going to lose friends. But I got to ask you a question. If you can't be honest with someone about who you are, is this really a good, healthy relationship for you to be in? I don't think it is. Now, I really don't have a problem with sharing that I'm autistic with people. In fact, when I go out in public, 9 out of 10 times, I'm wearing a T-shirt that says has something autism related on it. I mean, I don't care. And I look at it this way. I don't mind sharing it with people. And if people get freaked out about it or judgmental or distancing, two things go through my mind. Number one, that's a reflection on them, not me. Number two, it helps me weed out people who are not going to be there for me when I'm having a challenging day, when life gets tough. Because life does get tough, and it hasn't in your life. Trust me, it will. So that's our first fear of rejection and abandonment. Now, our second fear is our fear of being misunderstood. Many of us on the spectrum worry that our interactions or behaviors will be misinterpreted. We don't always know we always wonder what people expect from us. Okay. That's why I struggle with small talk. Because when people start small talking with me and say, how, what do you think of the weather today? And I'm like, what do they want me to say? I mean, I really don't care. I'm fine with the weather. Weather is what it is. And I live in Missouri and we have an expression here. If you don't like the weather, wait about 15 minutes and it will change. So it's no big deal to me. But we worry about how we react to situations because we know at times we react differently than our holistic peers. We notice these patterns, and this causes us to be fearful of being misunderstood. Like example for grieving. First of all, I believe every single person grieves differently, autistic and holistics. And two, that grieving and each experience that we grieve is going to be different because each person we lose in our lives, we had a different kind of relationship with. And that relationship will impact our grieving. If we're someone really close to us, we may grieve more than somebody who just the UPS guy that brought a package to our house maybe once a week for the last 4 months or whatever. That depends on it. And we know that at times when we grieve, we may do it more internally. And then people look at us, and this happened to me when my grandfather on my dad's side passed away. I didn't really cry. I didn't. And now I was probably in about seventh grade, and I lived in Missouri. My grandfather lived in California, so I only saw him about 4 or 5 times in my life. So I think that was part of the factor. But I didn't cry, and my dad got a little upset at me. I wasn't crying. I wasn't grieving, and that's and in any situation, that's the worst thing anyone can do. No one should tell you how you should grieve. That's a personal thing. But because of this type of things that happen in our lives, we fear being misunderstood because we perceive the world and respond to it differently than our autistic peers. And this causes us to have fears that we're going to be misunderstood, we're going to be judged. Part of the reason that we fear being misunderstood is we have a difficulty expressing emotions or our needs, which I kind of touched upon a moment ago when I talked about grieving. And sometimes it's hard for us to express our needs. And sometimes that's because, at least in my case, I don't fully understand what my needs are. Or I'm afraid that if I say this to someone, what my needs are, they're not going to understand it and I'm going to be misunderstood. So we have a difficulty expressing our emotions or our needs. And that leads us to a fear of conflict or being seen as rude or cold. I am I am very blunt. Okay. And my wife and I talked about this today, that I'm very blunt about things. And that can come across to people as being rude or cold. In fact, when I was younger and I worked in radio, people would call in and ask me if I was British. And I thought, what the heck are they talking about? I don't have a British accent. But then I learned that because I'm so blunt, naturally, I am very blunt. I become more aware of it. So I try to let people know who are going to be in my inner circle that I am blunt at times and I don't mean to be and I don't mean to be rude. That's just, excuse me, who I am. But yeah, because we're sometimes rude, well, not rude, but because we're blunt, people would think that we're rude or cold, especially here in America. In England, their bluntness is a little bit more of an art and more accepted. I love the British. I love how they can say how they feel, but yet, I mean, let's be honest, it's an insult, but at the same time, it sounds like a compliment. If you ever seen the Steve Martin movie, The Out of Towners, when they arrive at the hotel and the front desk clerk is talking to one of the people who work there, and he asked her, "Is that a new haircut?" And she said, "Yeah." And he said, "You may want to work in the back for a while." It sounds so polite, but yet, and that's an art that I love. Okay. But yeah, when we are blunt here in America, we can be seen as rude or cold, and we don't mean to be. We're just, to the point. That's who we are. And if you're just joining us right now, I'd just like to remind you we're talking about the 10 common fears of that autistic adults late diagnosed do deal with on a regular basis. And I'll recap all 10 at the end. We're in fear number 2 right now, the fear of being misunderstood. Additionally, in the category of fear of being misunderstood, we experience frustration when our communication style is not respected or valued. Sometimes for me, it's easier for me to communicate by writing it out, writing a letter, writing a text, whatever. And that's easier for me. But I know that most people don't do that. So I get afraid of sharing myself through the communication style I'm comfortable with. And so I don't use that communication style. I try to conform with what others are doing, my autistic peers. And And then I don't share how I feel and I'm not being authentic to myself. But that's one thing I go through. So, do you have a fear of being misunderstood? If you feel comfortable, share that in the live chat or in the comments on this video. I do read every single comment that comes in. The third fear we have is fear of masking fatigue and burnout. And this is probably one of the biggest ones that we, as late diagnosed autistic adults, battle with. And this fear includes we fear or assume and feel the pressure to constantly mask autistic traits to fit in, which is mentally and emotionally exhausting. Look, I'm up there in the years, okay? I'll be honest, I'm almost a dinosaur, okay? uh yeah, so I'm gonna be approaching 60. And gotten to a point in my life, I don't care anymore. I'm just gonna be me, be my authentic self. Try not to be rude to people, but uh let it be what it is. Okay, that's who I want to be and who I am. I don't want to mask anymore. But because we feel pressure to do that, this adds to our fear of masking fatigue and burnout, because those are real things we battle with and experience. Everyone on the spectrum experiences in their lifetime. And additionally, in the fear of the masking and burnout category, we fear what will happen if we stop masking. Will we lose relationships or jobs? We feel like we have to wear a mask to keep our friends. And like I mentioned earlier, is that really a friendship if you cannot be your authentic self for somebody? Is that an authentic friendship? Something to think about, isn't it? But we fear that if we stop masking, we're going to lose relationships or jobs. And it's probably a realistic fear. Because we do stop masking, we're going to lose some friends. We may lose a job. Okay? And jobs are important to have. I'm not saying they're not. But being true to your authentic self is also important. And you got to figure out what the right balance is for you. I can't tell you what the right balance is. And also, we experience concerns about long-term impacts on masking on our mental health. It can. It can cause a lot of long-term mental health issues when we don't know we are. We don't know our own identity, who we truly are, and love and accept ourselves. So this is a real fear that we have. And the solution to that is to start working towards unmasking. Unmasking is not an overnight process. It could take months, years, decades. It could take your entire life. You may never fully accomplish it. I'm not telling you that to discourage you, but I'm just saying that's the reality of it. Okay. But yeah, that's how we can deal with that fear of masking exhaustion, fatigue, and burnout by taking off the mask. Now, a fourth fear that we'd like to talk about, the fear of change and the unknown. This is a big one for me. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I don't like change and I don't like unknown. I do so much better when there's not change and I know what's going to happen. Okay, I'm the type of guy that if I read mysteries, I would want to read the end of the book and find out who did it, because I don't want the unknown. I just want to know the answers. Okay. So, in the category of fear of change and the unknown, we may experience difficulty coping with unexpected changes or traditions, like a new job, marriage, schedule shifts, etc. I am horrible at change. If my wife was here with me right now, she would tell you I don't make changes on him. I don't do well with those. Okay. I don't. I get really irritable, anxious, and just all out of sorts that somebody makes a sudden change on me. Now, if I initiate the change, I'm okay with it. But if anyone else does it, I'm not. I know that's not fair, but that's just, how things are. Okay, I gotta be honest with you. Speaking of the category of fear of change and the unknown, anxiety around unfamiliar environments or routines can cause us to experience some fear, change, or the unknown. I know I get a little bit anxious when I'm in an unfamiliar environment. or an unfamiliar routine. Like if I go to a new doctor's office, um, it would be difficult for me. In fact, I'm a primary care physician, and normally we see her on the left side. She shares an office with a practice with I think five other doctors, and we usually go in the left door, and we're in an exam room that has a window in it. Well, she's moved to the other side of the practice. Okay, so this time when I saw her, we went in the right door instead of the left door, and we went into an exam room without a window. And that caused me some anxiety because that was not a familiar environment for me. I wanted my window back. I wanted everything to be the same because I don't like change. So, do you have fear of change and the unknown? If you feel comfortable, share that in the chat, whether it be in the live chat or in the comments if you're watching this video on archive. So that will be that's a fear that we have. And additionally, in the fear of the change and unknown category, we need to talk about the fear of sensory overload in new or unpredictable situations. Yeah, you go somewhere new, like if let's say the first time you go to a concert, you don't know how loud it's going to be. You don't know what's going to happen. Or the first time you go to a church service or any group meeting, maybe a Toastmasters meeting. You're going to fear because it's unknown. Or you may fear because it's unknown. And is unpredictable. And you don't know what the noise level will be. And if you're sensitive to noise, that can cause you fear. And fear can cause anxiety, which is very common in autistic adults and in autistic youths, children. Now, the fifth fear that we autistic adults deal with, especially late diagnosed, is a fear of employment challenges. Now, this is not only something that we as autistics fear, anyone with a disability has similar fears. Anyone who is older, they have this fear because of ageism. People who are in the LGBTQIA plus community have this fear. Allistics have this fear. We all have fears of employment challenges. Some are greater than others. But let's talk about those that we autistic adults may experience. And we can worry about not being hired or promoted due to being autistic. We know we're different, and we're proud of that. But when we go to a job interview, because about 98% of the world is not autistic, we feel we have to conform, we have to mask. And depending on how good we are and how well we connect with that person doing the interview, we worry, will we get that job? Will they tell? Can they tell by looking at me that I'm autistic? If I went to a job interview and I brought my needle ball and was playing with it during the entire interview, because that's one of my sim toys and one of my sensory regulations that helps me, would that keep me from getting the job? So I decide not to take it with me. I don't have it in my hands. I'm at the interview. Now I don't have my STEM thing to help me relax and help me with my anxiety and my sensory issues. So now I'm like really nervous, and you might be able to see it in my face or hear it in my voice. And that's because of the autism. And then you leave the interview thinking, did I blow it? This is one of the fears that we have. And it's a real fear for those of us on the spectrum. Another fear that we have is the fear of disclosing autism to employers due to stigma or discrimination. Not just autism, it's practically any disability that someone has. At work, we don't want to be weak. We want to come across as being a very strong person who is a team player and is going to be there and can handle whatever comes at them. We feel like work, the weakest of the herd will get thinned out, will get bullied, ridiculed, and will be fired and all. And this is the concern I think a lot of people have, whether they're on the spectrum or not. But this is a real fear for us. Additionally, in the category of fear of employment challenges, anxiety about navigating workplace social expectations and sensory environments. In our personal life, we can control a lot of that to some extent. If social expectations is hard for us, we may be more comfortable with a more reclusive, secluded lifestyle. I don't go out that much in public. I don't hang out with people a lot. I don't have that many people over to my house because that makes me more comfortable. And I can control my sensory environments, what my house looks like, my home, what sounds are on. And when I do go out, I can control it by having headphones on or whatever. You don't have that kind of control when you go to a job. It's the company's decision on a lot of that, and you may have to interact with people. This is one of the things that is an employment challenge because how we the social expectations of work, politics is getting along with people and a lot of that, and a lot of that goes over my head. Okay, I'll be honest with you. But this is one of the things that we fear as autistic adults in the workforce. Now, number 6 on our list of 10, we're halfway through the list, is the fear of not being autistic enough or being invalidated. Now, one of the things that causes this is within ourselves, and we do this to ourselves. It's called internalized doubt about whether we are really autistic, especially among late diagnosed or self-diagnosed adults. I don't like the word self-diagnosed. I prefer the word self-identified because self-diagnosing, I think, is a little bit, you start going down that road, you're going to diagnose yourself for terminal disease and you don't have it. So I prefer the phrase self-identified. And we worry, are we autistic enough? And we meet somebody else who's autistic and they're different than us. And we think, well, maybe I'm not autistic. Maybe I'm not autistic enough. And we start questioning and doubting ourselves because that's, I think, a baseline for us in the autism community. We're always questioning ourselves, and because I'm asking, okay. So we do that. My and we also look at stereotypes of autism, and we ask ourselves, do I have the stereotype? And then you think, well, I don't. Am I really autistic? And we start doubting that. And that makes us unsure of who we are. And knowing who we are and accepting who we are is a key thing we must do to live confidently autistic. You have to be comfortable with yourself if you want to be confident in life. You need to be confident in who you are if you want to succeed and be confident in life. You have to accept yourself, okay? My nephew, I have a 7-year-old great nephew who is on the spectrum, okay? And I don't like eye contact, okay? Which is not uncommon in the autism spectrum. Many people on the autism spectrum do not like eye contact. My nephew, when he talks to me, insists on eye contact. Does that make him non-autistic? Or me not wanting to have eye contact and he doesn't, he's on the spectrum, does that make me not autistic? No. We all experience autism differently. So we got to stop beating ourselves up with the internalized doubt if we're really autistic. It's also the fear of being dismissed by professionals, peers, or community members. Coming out and letting people know that you're on the spectrum can be scary because you're afraid of rejection, you're afraid of judgment, you're afraid of stereotyping, you're afraid of all these things, especially by professionals, like medical professionals. I've heard many people say, I went to my doctor. I told them I thought I'm autistic because of these reasons. And the doctor just shuts you down. Oh, you can't be autistic. And that is hurtful. That is being dismissed. And that causes us to retreat and causes that internalized doubt that we have. If you really think you may be on the spectrum and somebody shuts you down like that, that's just one person's opinion. Get a second opinion, but also be open to the fact that maybe you're not. Okay? Don't go in there. I'm convinced that I am, and I'm going to find somebody who agrees with me. You want an honest answer. So be open to that. But don't let people shut you down because you start talking about it and they say, oh, no, you can't be autistic. Because then that's telling you they don't want to listen. They don't want to, they're uncomfortable with this. Find somebody who's comfortable with having a conversation. Work with them. Additionally, we kind of touched upon this earlier, but part of this fear that we're talking about, which is the fear of I have a horrible memory. I had to scroll up and look at it. Fear of being not being autistic enough, for being invalidated, is the fear that we experience with, or anxiety that we have about not fitting stereotypes of what autism looks like. Like I talked about earlier, it's stereotyped that autistic people are not comfortable with eye contact. I'm not. My great nephew, who is on the spectrum, insists on eye contact when he talks to me. So I do it because I want to validate and meet his needs. He's 7. I want to make him happy. But that just because of that stereotype, I hope he never asked himself and said, I'm not autistic because I make eye contact. Because every one of us experiences autism differently. The seventh fear that we as autistic adults deal with on a regular basis is the fear of sensory overload in public spaces. I probably deal with this all my life and all, and I don't really let it be in the front of my mind and scare me to the point that I don't want to go anywhere, but I think it's always there. Because for years, I have taken headphones with me to help mute the noise and listen to music to help me relax. Now, speaking of the fear of sensory overload in public spaces, this can appear as apprehension about loud, bright, or crowded environments. For me, I'm apprehensive about crowded environments the most, okay? A little bit apprehensive about loudness, somewhat about light, but the other three, crowded environments is what I'm most apprehensive about. Of the three, whether it be apprehension about loudness, noise, bright lights or sight, or crowded environments, which one are you most apprehensive about? If you feel comfortable, share that in the live chat or in the comments on this video if you're watching this after the live event. Excuse me. Another fear that we have, and it's a realistic fear, a fear of having a meltdown or shutdown in public and being judged or mistreated. Yeah, that is hard for me because sometimes I do have meltdowns in public. Sometimes I have shutdowns. And people who are not familiar with autism or me don't know how to help me. So and constantly have to be very aware of this, especially when I'm out in public by myself, not with my wife, that I have to make sure I keep myself regulated. So no matter what happens, I have a minimal risk of having a meltdown or a shutdown. It's a challenge every time I go out. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've ever told my wife that, but it is a challenge for me to try to not have a meltdown or a shutdown when I'm in public for whatever causes, whatever is sensory overload, interaction that I had that triggers something. It is a challenge for me. And of course, part of this fear of sensory overload in public spaces, the fear around having to explain or advocate for sensory needs. Because, we go somewhere where somebody's house and we're all watching a movie and they have surround sound and it's really cool, but it's too much for you. You feel like you're going to be a party pooper by saying, can we dial that down a little? It's a little bit too loud for me. We don't want to do that. We're afraid to explain. And they say, well, why do you need to turn down? And they say, well, I get sensory overload. Maybe you're not comfortable telling everyone in the room. So you have a fear to explain or advocate for your sensory needs in public. Now, the eighth fear that we deal with as autistic adults, and this is a double-edged one, the fear of being alone or isolated. We have that fear, and some of us, we live that way because it's easier for us, okay? I'm going to do a deeper dive into this topic in another video because this one really catches my eye, and I feel called to go deeper into this because of the things that are going on in my life, some transitions I'm going through, and I hate transitions. Okay, I do. Okay, with the fear of being alone or isolated, many of us struggle with making or maintaining connections due to communication differences. This is one of the, and because we cannot make those connections, we're afraid that we're going to be isolated or alone the rest of our lives. And everyone needs people in their lives. We need friendships. We need relationships. We need contact. It's better for our mental health. And they say you'll be healthier longer as you age, and and you will live longer. So we need that. But we're afraid. We're afraid that our communication styles and differences is going to be a challenge for us because we struggle with making and maintaining connections. I, for the life of me, cannot tell you how to make a friend. Okay, how to start a friendship. I don't get it. It goes over my head, and it's just when it does happen, it's just like a magical thing, and I can't understand how I did it, so I can repeat it and make more friends. It's just weird. Anyway, another thing that falls underneath this category is feeling like no one truly understands us. And this is more of an internal thing. And now it could be fueled by having bad experiences with people who have judged you or have criticized you because of your autism. But this is the fear that no one truly understands us. And we often say that nobody gets me, nobody understands me. And that sounds like a pity party. Okay. And that's not, I never invite me to a pity party because I don't know what to bring to a pity party. I just don't. I don't. I'm horrible at those. I'm a horrible gift buyer. But feeling like nobody truly understands you is another reason you will feel or may fear being isolated and alone. Because nobody understands you, you're afraid that you're going to be alone. And for many of us, that's a scary thing. And one of the things that we face is the fear of living a life without a meaningful relationship or community. We fear this. I mean, it's not just autistic people, it's anyone who's in the disabled community. We often feel like we will not have a meaningful relationship. I know I struggled with that when I was dating. I wanted to have a relationship. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have that experience and share my life with somebody. But I kept fearing that I would never have a meaningful relationship because nobody would want to be with me because of my disabilities. See, I have multiple disabilities. I'm visually impaired. Okay. And I also am on the spectrum. And when I was dating, we did not know I was on the spectrum, but we knew I was visually impaired and we knew I had ADHD. And over the years, I acquired an incomplete spinal cord injury, so I'm physically disabled. So those fears, you think no one's going to want to be with me. It's a fear. It's a realistic fear. But I'm here to tell you, you can have a meaningful relationship. I've been married. It's coming this Saturday. It's going to be 22 years I've been married. And it's been a wonderful marriage, and I've loved every minute of it. And I hope for another 22 years or more. Okay. It can happen. You have to work at it. And even though if you're trying to find somebody and you keep getting rejected because you're autistic, remember that's not a reflection upon you. It's a reflection upon their character. And they're telling you, I'm not mature enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not the right person to be with you. That's really important for you to know. Okay. Now, the other fear we kind of talked about here, the fear of living life without meaningful community. There are communities everywhere that we can be a part of on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all those social media platforms that I despise, but they're there. You can join those communities. Or this is a shameless plug, I'll be honest with you. You can join the community here by subscribing to this channel and participating in conversations, commenting on videos, etc. This is a place you can find a community. So please feel free to subscribe to the channel. Now we're getting near the end of this list and all. So we're up to number 9. Fear of not living authentically. And this is probably because we know we mask. And we know that's not living authentically. And we want to change that. But we're afraid of not masking because we're afraid of all the other stuff I mentioned. And because of all those other fears and of the fear that we have to mask leads to us to have a fear of not living authentically. And this includes that we worry that we will never be able to be our full selves without shame. And that shame comes from internal, and a lot of that internal comes from society's pressure on us and being judged or misunderstood in our lives. So that fuels our masking. And we're afraid we can never be our authentic self because of past experiences. And this is a realistic fear for us. Additionally, part of the fear of not living authentically, we are concerned that conforming to neurotypical norms will erode our identity and self-worth. And that, I believe that's a realistic fear. Okay. I believe that every single time we mask, we are hurting our authentic selves. We need to be who we are. I don't know if you're a person of faith or not. I am. And if you're not, no judgment here. But God made us the way that we are for a reason, and we should embrace that. And we should not be ashamed of who we are. Okay? Never be ashamed of that. Additionally, we fear that our unique gifts and needs will never be seen or appreciated. And that does fear us because we know we have unique gifts. And we know we have some unique needs, like, sensory issues with light, sound, whatever. And we're fearful that these unique gifts that we have and that our needs would never be seen or appreciated by someone, that they would be used against us, to discriminate against us, to profile us, whatever. And that leads to us to have a fear of not living authentically because we want to hide all that stuff and try to blend in and be normal. We want to be chameleons, okay? And while we're being a chameleon, we're going to hide those unique gifts. We're going to suffer through things instead of expressing our needs for accommodations. And that hurts us. And we need to stop doing that. We need to be who we authentically are. And the 10th fear, the fear of medical and mental health misunderstandings. Anxiety about healthcare providers not understanding or accommodating our autistic traits. Okay, this is a big thing for many people, and I'll tell you, I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed that I got pointed to a doctor, a primary care physician who understands autism. In fact, I know I shared this in another video, and I'm going to do it quickly here. That I went to my doctor. I was concerned I was on the spectrum. And I started telling her some of the things going on in my life. I did not even mention the word autism. And she said, "Oh, that's not uncommon for someone who's on the spectrum." She looked at me like, "Hasn't anyone told you you're autistic?" And she encouraged me to pursue it. And she works with me on each visit. She knows that I have sensory issues. She's very understanding, empathetic. I want to say sympathetic, because when you say sympathetic, you think of sometimes someone showing you pity. Empathetic means they have empathy for what you're doing. They understand it and they don't look down on you. She's very empathetic and accommodating for me. And I appreciate that. But yeah, there's a lot of anxiety I know in our community about healthcare providers not understanding or accommodating our autistic traits. And I still encounter that a little bit, mainly when I go for a CT scan and they have to do an IV, and I'm deathly afraid of needles, which I'll be talking about that in a video tomorrow, Friday, June 6th. And the link to that video will be in the video description of this video as soon as that video is published up here on YouTube. Additionally, when we talk about the fear of medical and mental health misunderstandings, we must acknowledge the fear of being misdiagnosed or dismissed by therapists or doctors. You can go to a doctor and one would say you have this, another won't. You can get a second opinion, and they can be different. Two doctors can look at you and have two different diagnoses. Doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen, especially when it comes to autism. See, if you were going to be diagnosed with cancer, there's some numbers they can look at. They can run some blood tests. They can say, okay, your cancer markers are here. And so, yes, you definitely have cancer. We did some scans and we found cancer in your arms or your legs or wherever, right? Yeah, we done some tests and we can see that you have an enlarged prostate, or you have appendicitis, because there's some actual markers, I would say, signs, measuring points that would say, yes, this is definitely true. Now, now, when it comes to autism, it is based upon the screening has some criteria, but it's based upon how the person evaluating you interprets what you say and how you express yourself. Part of it's on us, and how they interpret the criteria to see if you fit in that criteria or not. And it's harder for adults because most of the screening is done on kids. There's not that many that do or even know how to screen for autism in adults later in life. So because of this, we are fear of being misdiagnosed or dismissed by therapists or doctors. I've heard stories that this has happened to people, and it shouldn't. Everyone should be validated. Everyone should be respected and listened to. But this fear does cause us not to open up to our medical care team, and we need to. We need to make sure that people that are taking care of us understand and accept and have empathy for our sensory issues as autistic adults. And if they don't, that may be a sign you're not with the right doctor. I'm not going to tell you to change doctors, okay? That's not my place. But I'm just saying, if your doctor does not empathize and understand and and respect the fact that you're on the spectrum, maybe this doctor isn't right for you. You want to have a doctor you feel totally comfortable telling anything to, and without judgment, because doctors should not judge you. They're there to listen to you and to treat you unbiasedly without judgment. And to me, that's something important that I need to have going on when I work with medical professionals. And the last thing I want to talk about here is concerns about medical trauma or being forced into treatments that don't fit our needs. We're worried about that. For me, medical trauma is a big thing because 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 the fear that I have at I'm sorry, I'm distracted by something in my ear. My apologies. Medical traumas. I can be traumatized by an IV, a shot, a blood draw. So I'm fearful or concerned about medical traumas. And that's one of the things that I fear. So I'm going to recap the 10 fears that we talked about today, 10 categories of fears, and share any of the fears that you have. If you feel comfortable, you can share that, or you can email them to me and we can have a little conversation via email. My email is Chris, Chras, at define, DefineYourself.us. Love to hear what some of your fears are. So here are the 10 fears. Let's go through these. Number one, fear of rejection or abandonment. Number two, fear of being misunderstood. Number three, fear of masking fatigue and burnout. Number four, fear of change and the unknown. Fear number five, fear of employment challenges. Number six, the fear of not being autistic enough or being invalidated. Fear number seven, the fear of sensory overload in public places. Fear number eight, the fear of being alone or isolated. Fear number nine, the fear of not living authentically. And fear number 10, the fear of medical and mental health misunderstandings. Now, of those 10 fears, which one is the greatest for you? And why? If you feel comfortable, share that. I think I can relate to all these fears in one way or another, some a little bit stronger than others. Now, I know I ask you which one do you relate to the most, and I'm sitting here thinking I should have an answer for that. Okay, I ask you guys that, I should have that one. I'm just scrolling through these here. I know that fear of rejection or abandonment is really big for me, probably one of the bigger ones that I have. And let's see, fear of the change and unknown would probably come in number 2 on my list. No, the fear of employment does not bother me that much. I work for myself. So I'm pretty easy to work with for me. I get along, I get me. I understand my sensory needs. There's no real problems with that. And I make reasonable accommodations and yada yada yada. Okay, fear of not being autistic enough of being invalidated. Yeah, I have a little bit of fear of that. I do, because I'm newly diagnosed and about a year ago, and I still wonder, am I autistic enough that people are going to believe me when I tell them I'm on the spectrum? That's one thing I still battle with. Fear of sensory overload in public places. That's probably been a lifelong fear for me. I mean, this I don't like being overloaded, and combined with my fear of the unknown in places. Fear of being alone or isolated. That has been a fear when I was younger. I'm now at a point in my life, the world is way too peoply, and I prefer to be alone, okay? I actually prefer that. I love the fact I can get groceries delivered and everything practically delivered to my house. And the only time I have to leave is for doctor's appointments and to get a haircut. I love that. I'm loving this life, okay? It's way too peoply out there and too much sensory stuff. Fear of not living authentically. I think I have a little fear of that. I think I do. And but I'm working on that because I'm trying to really unmask and just be who I am within social norms. I mean, if I'm having a meltdown, it's okay if I want to have a meltdown as long as I don't destroy property and get a criminal charge, you know? And then the fear of medical and mental health misunderstandings. And the major one that I have is not with my primary, but when I go in for procedures and I work with people who I've never worked with before, that is really hard on me. So I want to thank you for joining me tonight. No matter where you watch this video, from the start to the end, whatever, thank you for making time to watch this video. And you watch it in archive, that's great. Please thumb up and like this video. Now, originally, now we normally do these, let me say it this way. We normally do these videos on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. And when we originally scheduled this video, I was not going to be here next Thursday night, okay? And we were going to come back on June 19th. I just got an email an hour ago, and the event that I was supposed to be at next Thursday night, they asked me to reschedule for Saturday. It's an event where I look for guests to be on my YouTube channel. So I will be back next Thursday night. I don't have a topic right now, but we will be back next Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Time here in the United States. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Hawaii. So we will be back, and then we'll be back on the 19th. On the 19th, we have a very interesting topic here. Let me find it for you because I want to say it right because it's a really good topic, and I encourage you to be there. 7 reasons why. Let me get this up here. Let me do it. 7 reasons why so many diagnosed autistic adults struggle with self-confidence. So in that week, bring whatever challenges your self-confidence. I want to hear about it. Let's discuss it. Okay. That's going to be on June 19th. That's 2 weeks from tonight, but we will be here next week. I don't know the topic yet. Okay. Be looking for an announcement for that on, um, on the community tab here on my YouTube channel. Again, I want to thank you so very much for being a part of the live stream tonight. And if you're watching this in archive, thank you for watching this. And don't forget to check out the 250 plus videos I have here on this channel. to help you understand and start your journey to living confidently autistic. And don't forget my free resource, 28-page PDF that help you understand autism and start understanding autism. It's not a deep dive into it, but it gives you the starting points for it and some starting steps you can take today to live confidently autistic. And that's a free resource. It's a PDF, 28 pages. It has reflection questions in it. It's a great resource. You can get it at my website, theconfidentautistic.com/start. So thank you again for joining us tonight. I will see you guys in the next video, and I'll be live next Thursday night.